Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep into the world of the Mayans, a civilization that thrived for centuries in Central America. And for this one, we've got an awesome visual guide, a YouTube video called 10 Most Amazing Mayan Ruins Travel Video by Teropia.
Awesome. And we're not just going to skim the surface here.
Right,
We're going to uncover what makes these ruins more than just piles of stones.
right.
They're like puzzle pieces to understanding this complex and fascinating culture.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it this way. We're time travelers using these ruins to understand Mayan achievements in architecture, astronomy, even their political systems.
And we'll see how their story, despite its eventual collapse, still offers valuable lessons for us today.
Okay, so let's start our countdown. Number 10 takes us to Lamanai in Belize. Its name translates to submerged crocodile, which hints at the fact that the city was still inhabited when the Spanish arrived. Most other Mayan cities had already been abandoned by then.
What's so fascinating about Lamanai is that it was situated on a trade route, giving it access to resources and making it a hub for cultural exchange.
So it wasn't just about surviving, but thriving, in a changing world. It
Yeah.
makes you wonder what they knew that other cities didn't.
Exactly. Now at number 9, we've got Coba in Mexico. This city was massive, with an estimated 50,000 inhabitants at its peak. And its most striking feature is the Nohok Mole Pyramid, standing tall at 42 meters.
Whoa, that's taller than a 10-story building. I read that you can still climb to the top and get a panoramic view of the jungle. Imagine what it must have been like for the Mayans, seeing their city laid out in front of them.
It's a reminder of their sophisticated city planning. They didn't just randomly build structures. The placement of pyramids like Nohok Mole likely had religious and astronomical significance, possibly even serving as a point for observing the
Okay,
stars.
let's move on to number 8, Copan in Honduras. This one is shrouded in mystery because it was seemingly abandoned quite suddenly around the 9th century.
Yeah, and what's even more intriguing is that Copan is famous for its portrait stelae. These are carved stone monuments that depict Mayan rulers and important figures. They were probably used to record history, celebrate victories, and legitimize the ruler's power.
So these stelae weren't just art, they were powerful tools of communication and propaganda, much like public monuments today.
Exactly. Now let's journey back to Belize for number 7, Caracol. This city was a true powerhouse, even bigger than modern-day Belize City. At its peak, it was home to a staggering 150,000 people.
Talk about a megacity, and its Canana Pyramid at 43 meters is the tallest man-made structure in all of Belize. To think that they built this without modern technology, it's mind-blowing.
It speaks volumes about their engineering skills and their ability to organize labor on a massive scale. They probably used a system of ramps and rollers to move those huge stones into place.
It makes you wonder how the average person lived in a city like Caracol. Did they have specialized jobs? Social classes?
Those are great questions, and archaeologists are still piecing together the answers by studying the city's layout, artifacts, and burial sites.
For number 6, we're heading to the coast, to the beautiful city of Tulum in Mexico. This one is perched on a cliff overlooking the Caribbean Sea.
Tulum's location wasn't just scenic, it was strategic. It served as a major trading port connecting the Mayan world with other cultures in the Caribbean. They traded goods like jade cotton and cacao beans.
Oh, chocolate. I bet those cacao beans were highly prized. And speaking of prized possessions, Tulum also boasts the Temple of the Frescoes, with its incredibly well-preserved murals.
These murals give us a glimpse into Mayan religious beliefs and rituals. They depict deities, ceremonies, and scenes from their mythology. It's like getting a sneak peek into their worldview.
Okay, ready for number 5. This one is Calakmul, located deep within the jungles of Mexico. Now, this city wasn't just known for its size, it was also known for its rivalry with another powerful city, Tikal.
It was like a real-life political thriller with these two superpowers constantly vying for dominance in the region. They formed alliances, waged wars, and engaged in all sorts of political maneuvering.
It's amazing how these ancient power struggles mirror what we see happening in the world today.
And these conflicts had real consequences. They could disrupt trade, lead to the downfall of rulers, and even weaken entire cities, leaving them vulnerable to outside threats.
Speaking of beautiful cities, let's move on to number 4, Palenque in Mexico. This one may be smaller than some of the others, but it's renowned for its exquisite architecture and sculptures.
Palenque is a true gem. Its structures are adorned with intricate carvings and stucco decorations, showcasing the Mayan mastery of art and craftsmanship.
I read that Palenque is also home to the Temple of Inscriptions, which houses the tomb of one of their most famous rulers, Bacal the Great. What's the story there?
This temple is unique because it was built specifically as a funerary monument. Inside, archaeologists discovered Pakal's sarcophagus covered in elaborate carvings that depict his journey into the underworld.
It's fascinating how they incorporated their beliefs about the afterlife into their architecture and burial practices.
And the hieroglyphic inscriptions found in Palenque have been crucial in helping us understand their history, their rulers, and their religious beliefs.
We're getting close to the top of our list. Number 3 takes us to Uxmal, also in Mexico. This city is famous for the Pyramid of the Magician, which has a very unusual oval shape.
Yeah, most Mayan pyramids have a square or rectangular base, so the oval shape of this pyramid is quite unique. It's thought to have been built in several stages, with each layer representing a different period of construction.
It's like architectural layers of a cake, each telling a different story about the city's evolution. I wonder what prompted them to choose that particular shape. Was it symbolic or purely functional?
That's a question that archaeologists are still trying to answer. It's possible that the shape was inspired by a natural hill formation, or it could have had astronomical significance aligning with certain celestial events.
All right, time for number 2. Pico in Guatemala. This is the one I've been looking forward to. I've seen pictures of those towering temples rising above the jungle canopy, and it just looks incredible.
Tikal was a true metropolis, the largest and most powerful of the Mayan cities during its peak around 600 AD. It was a major center for trade, religion, and politics, and its influence extended far beyond its borders.
And it's home to the Temple of the Two-Headed Snake, one of the tallest pre-Columbian structures in the Western Hemisphere. I can only imagine what the view must be like from up there.
You would have a 360-degree view of the jungle stretching out as far as the eye can see. It's said to be a truly breathtaking experience, connecting you to the grandeur of the Mayan civilization and the vastness of the natural world.
And finally, we've reached the pinnacle of our countdown, number 1, Chichen Itza in Mexico. This is probably the most famous Mayan archaeological site in the world.
And for good reason. Chichen Itza was a thriving metropolis on the Yucatán Peninsula, and its ruins are incredibly well preserved, giving us a detailed glimpse into their architecture, astronomy, and religious practices.
The star of the show is the Temple of Kukulkan, a massive pyramid that's renowned for its astronomical alignments.
During the spring and fall equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow on the pyramid's staircase, creating the illusion of a serpent descending the steps. This phenomenon is a testament to the Mayans' sophisticated understanding of astronomy and their ability to incorporate it into their architecture.
So it wasn't just a pyramid, it was a giant calendar, a way to track the seasons and connect with the cosmos.
Exactly. But Chichen Itza also has a darker side, a reminder that the Mayan world wasn't a utopia. There's the Wall of Skulls, a platform adorned with carved skulls, likely representing the victims of ritual sacrifice.
And the sacred Cenote natural sinkhole was another site of human sacrifice. Archaeologists have recovered numerous skeletal remains from its depths, offering a glimpse into the religious beliefs and practices of the ancient Mayans.
These findings remind us that the Mayans, like many ancient cultures, had complex religious beliefs and practices, some of which involved human sacrifice. It's a reminder that the past wasn't always idyllic and that every civilization has its complexities and contradictions.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, from Lamanai in Belize to Chichen Itza in Mexico. And what's striking is that these cities weren't isolated entities. They were part of a vast and interconnected civilization that spanned centuries and left an indelible mark on the world.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve deeper into the web of connections that tied these cities together. We'll explore their trade routes, their political alliances, and the cultural exchange that helped shape the Mayan world. It's incredible to think about how these cities, separated by dense jungles and vast distances, were actually deeply interconnected.
Right, it wasn't just about the occasional trade deal or something, right?
Not at all. Think of it as a complex web woven from trade routes, political alliances, and shared cultural practices. It's a testament to the Mayans' ability to not only build these impressive cities, but to create a thriving civilization that spanned a huge geographical area.
So what were some of the major trade routes? I imagine rivers played a big role.
Absolutely. The Usumacinta River, for example, was like a superhighway, connecting cities like Yaxchilan in Mexico with regions in Guatemala. They transported goods like jade obsidian feathers and even cacao beans along these waterways.
Speaking of cacao beans, I read that they were so valuable to the Mayans that they were even used as a form of currency.
It's true. They even had specific glyphs or written symbols to represent different quantities of cacao beans.
That's fascinating. So trade wasn't just about exchanging goods, it was also a way to spread ideas and cultural practices.
Exactly. We see evidence of this in the shared artistic styles, religious iconography, and even architectural techniques that appear in different cities across the Mayan world.
It's like those stele we talked about earlier, the ones with the portraits of rulers. The style and the way they were used seem to have been pretty consistent across different cities.
You're right. That points to a shared understanding of how to represent power and authority, which suggests a level of cultural exchange and possibly even shared governance practices.
So it wasn't just a bunch of independent city-states doing their own thing. There was definitely some level of collaboration and shared identity.
Precisely. And this interconnectedness is also evident in their political alliances. We know from deciphered glyphs that cities like Calakmul and Tikal form complex alliances with smaller cities, often using marriage between royal families to cement those bonds.
So it was like a real-life game of diplomacy with kings and queens making strategic moves to secure their power and influence.
Makes you wonder about the individuals behind those alliances. What were the personalities of these rulers? What were their motivations? Unfortunately, a lot of that detail is lost to history.
That's true. But it makes the puzzle all the more intriguing to try and piece together. So we've got trade, we've got political alliances, but what about the challenges they faced? Was it all smooth sailing in the Mayan world?
Not exactly. Remember how Copan was mysteriously abandoned around the 9th century? That's just one example of the difficulties the Mayans encountered.
Right, and we touched on the rivalry between Calakmul and Tikal. Those conflicts must have taken their toll.
They certainly did. These wars weren't just about territorial expansion. They could disrupt trade routes, lead to political instability, and weaken entire cities. And sometimes the victors would even dismantle the monuments and temples of their rivals, erasing their history and asserting their dominance.
It's a reminder that even in a civilization as advanced as the Mayans, conflict was a constant threat. And those conflicts could have lasting repercussions.
Precisely. And then there are the environmental challenges they face. Deforestation, for example, was a major issue. They relied heavily on wood for fuel and construction, and as their population grew, so did the demand for resources.
I can see how that would put a strain on the environment. Did they have any practices in place to manage their resources?
There's evidence that they implemented some sustainable practices like terracing hillsides to prevent soil erosion and creating raised fields for agriculture in swampy areas.
So they weren't oblivious to the impact they were having on the environment. But those efforts obviously weren't enough to prevent their eventual decline.
It's a complex issue, and there's still a lot we don't know about the specific factors that contributed to the decline of the Mayan civilization, but their story serves as a cautionary tale for us today.
In what way?
Well, it highlights the interconnectedness of human societies and the environment. The Mayans' choices, both in terms of resource management and political conflicts, had ripple effects that ultimately contributed to their decline.